There is a book that has been growing in popularity amongst the retirement community, and today I'm going to give you 4 strategies for building a retirement plan around this philosophy. The book we're talking about today is Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. Now, although you might not wholesale adopt this philosophy in full, I think this is a must-read book for every retiree. Now, let me give you a 60-second summary, and I'll link to a video where I cover this book a little bit more in depth. The general principle behind Die with Zero is that money is a tool, and you will only benefit from that tool to the extent that you utilize money to maximize your fulfillment. The problem is the average person greatly underutilizes their wealth. If you look at general statistics, the average person's net worth continues to grow throughout their life. They save all of this money for retirement, sacrifice years of their life, and the stats show many never use the money. Gratification is delayed too long where you never receive that gratification. Instead, Perkins believes we should hit a wealth peak and then draw down our wealth over time. Passing away with wealth means that person passed away with unused potential. They could have enjoyed their wealth earlier in retirement by going on more trips and having more experiences. They could have retired sooner and thus gained back the most valuable years of their life. For instance, imagine yourself at 90 years old at the end of your life. You still have, let's say, $1.5 million left within your retirement assets. Now, how much would you give to be able to rewind and gain back even one more year of your life in your 50s or your 60s? And this is exactly what this Die with Zero philosophy is built around. We want to utilize the wealth that we've worked so hard to accumulate. Now, the biggest objection around this philosophy is around the idea of giving to the next generation. I don't want to die with zero. I want to leave my children with a legacy, and dying with zero would leave my children out to dry. This is not the case. Instead, Perkins offers solutions around giving while you're still alive. This way, you not only give to your children at more ideal times in their lives, but also experience enjoyment from those gifts by seeing them utilize those gifts. Some of you that may have read this book agree wholeheartedly with the idea in principle. But in a world of uncertainty, how can we actually build a retirement plan that can allow us to utilize our wealth today while still planning for the risks of tomorrow? In this video, I'll give you 4 strategies I think can help do just this. The first strategy we're going to talk about is building a dynamic income plan. We need a plan that can reward us when our portfolio does well, while simultaneously making sure we have enough to last in the future. We will call this the probabilistic approach. There are 2 ways to think about retirement spending. Most advisors and retirees ask the first question: can I spend X dollars per month, and what is the probability of success of doing that? And the problem with this approach is the graph we see on the right. Any reasonable growth portfolio will have a wide distribution of outcomes. You might pass away with $15 million, but you also might run out of money 8 years before you pass away if things don't go as well. This type of analysis can leave a lot to be desired. The other way to think about spending is to look at the capacity of your plan. This is found as a function of looking at all of your assets and income streams relative to the estimated time that you have left in retirement. The longer time that we have, the more conservative we have to be. The closer we are to the end of our plan, the more aggressive we can be. We do this for our clients here at Safeguard with a guardrail system. So on the screen, I have a basic retirement scenario. To the left, I have a graph that shows historical monthly spending this couple could have had depending on when they retired historically. This graph includes variables like Social Security, inflation, and more. Now, their original goal income was $4,500 per month, but they love the idea of this Die with Zero philosophy. So in using a guardrail system, you have to choose a starting point. In black, a conservative starting point would be based on the worst case scenario historically. This is similar to the logic around the 4% rule. A more aggressive starting point would be at a higher historical level. You then have to overlay a dynamic income framework over the top of this. Now, let's look at what this guardrail system would have looked like in real-world application if we would have retired in, let's say, 1945. This wasn't a terrible starting year to retire, but it also wasn't a great one coming out of World War II. On the left, I have a couple's income experience adjusted for inflation. Then on the right, I have their portfolio and guardrails. As you can see, with a more conservative starting target, this couple is more likely to see income raises through time rather than income being lower. Again, this is because we start with a more conservative target. Most of the time, the future returns were better than the worst case historical returns. Ultimately, this couple didn't die with zero, but were able to draw down their portfolio significantly versus passing away with more than $1 million if they wouldn't have adjusted their income at all. We can look at the same analysis with a more aggressive starting point. This would translate to spending about $7,000 more per year. Here, we still see quite a few income raises as their portfolio grows, but we also see some lowering towards the end of their life. They end up spending on their portfolio a bit further. Now, an objection that some retirees might have is that they want to spend heavier on the front end. Most of these income raises that we're showing on the screen happen a little bit later in retirement. And this is a completely valid objection. But know that the guardrail system is highly customizable. Let's say rather than using flat spending throughout their retirement as our goal, we instead use the retirement spending smile as our income path. Spending ends up being higher in the go-go years and then fades over time as health declines. Under this approach, this couple could spend nearly $1,500 more per month from the previous examples we showed. We would see that the drawdown, at least in this trial, is much more pronounced. The point here is that a data-driven framework like this guardrail system can do an incredible job of reining in uncertainty and allowing you to utilize your wealth effectively. There's always going to be uncertainty, but uncertainty is a spectrum, and we can do quite a bit to minimize uncertainty within that spectrum through this dynamic model. Strategy number 2 comes from the fact that people are terrible actuaries, and this is a pronounced theme within this book, Die with Zero. On their own, they do a terrible job of planning for risks. On the screen, I have the portfolio balances of the scenario we've been discussing, but assuming that they don't use a dynamic income approach. As you can see in nearly every scenario, this person's wealth grows through time, and yet many retirees will find reasons to still not enjoy their wealth despite seeing this throughout their life. They say things like, sure, the stock market grew 15% this year, but the market is overvalued now. A decline is coming right around the corner. Or you just never know what's going to happen. Further, many retirees will worry about things like long-term care, and thus to plan for this, leave a massive safety margin at the end of their plan, just in case. They might leave $1 million safety margin for a $250,000 potential expense. Again, people are terrible actuaries. Now, before we talked about a probabilistic approach to dying with zero, know there are some insurance-oriented approaches for those that are more risk-averse. Rather than trying to be your own actuary, you let an expert be an actuary. On the income side, this can mean buying an income annuity. On the long-term care side, this can be looking at long-term care insurance. For a 65-year-old couple, an immediate income annuity right now is providing around a 6.67% payout. If you were following the 4% rule in a more probabilistic approach, you would be spending $12,000 per year less starting out than you would with the income annuity. Now, again, income annuities generally aren't inflation adjusted, whereas the 4% rule is meant to be, but nonetheless, the underlying performance can still be satisfactory. If you were earning 5% on your money in a probabilistic environment, if you lived past 92, this annuity would actually outperform that probabilistic approach. More importantly, however, it would give you peace of mind and certainty along the way. The same analysis can be applied when we consider pension payouts. An annuity and a pension are extremely similar in analysis. So when you're looking at a pension and thinking about the monthly income option versus a lump sum, we'd want to run a very similar analysis to the income annuity approach we're looking at right now. Now, an argument many will make in opposition of an annuity is that a balanced, even 60-40 portfolio often outperforms the annuity historically and likely will in the future. And this is a completely valid argument, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. An annuity is meant to be a safe asset. So we should really compare an income annuity to other safe assets like bonds and cash. And under this comparison, we can see that annuities become significantly more attractive than they otherwise would if we were comparing to more of a diversified portfolio. If we looked at a diversified bond portfolio, just an aggregate bond portfolio, starting in 1990, you would have run out of money in 25 years withdrawing the equivalent annuity income. And this was during a falling interest rate environment. Now, there are a lot of variables and considerations when it comes to any approach you use for retirement, and that's certainly the case when we talk about insurance solutions. Strategy number 3, Utilize Social Security properly in order to die with zero. On the screen, I have two charts showing the different planning considerations of filing for Social Security at 62 versus filing at age 70. Now, many will mistakenly think that filing for Social Security at 62 gives them more to spend during the go-go years, and that fits with the die with zero philosophy better. At least that's the thought. I hope to change your mind through data. If you file for Social Security at 62, you will have a growing portfolio need over time that will put more stress on your retirement assets and therefore force you to be a better actuary over the long term. As we know, many will be fearful of spending down their portfolio too rapidly and therefore will leave wealth on the table. Delaying Social Security, however, creates a bigger income demand up front that needs to be filled, but then leaves less over time. Knowing that a larger Social Security benefit will cover most, if not all, of your long-term income need is freeing in a lot of ways. The data backs up that delaying Social Security gives you higher spending capacity. Here's the way you should think about Social Security. Taking Social Security early gives you a higher ceiling when things go really well, when portfolio performance is fantastic. Delaying, on the other hand, gives you a higher floor when things don't go as well. The reason this matters is because most retirees plan based on the floor. The 4% rule is a floor-based approach. If your goal is to gain a high probability of success in your spending goal, you are focusing on the floor. We continually see this across the board when looking at coordinating Social Security inside of retirement plans. Delaying Social Security actually allows you to spend more in the go-go years, which is counterintuitive for many. Strategy number 4, let's talk about gifting while alive. Again, many retirees resonate with the idea of gifting while alive rather than waiting till the end of their life. For instance, if you wait until the end of your life, your children may be 60 or 65 years old themselves. They've already planned for their retirement. And so the legacy that you leave them is still very beneficial, but not nearly as beneficial as if they would have received that a couple years sooner. Problem here is, how can we confidently gift without knowing what the future holds? Well, first, generally the most optimal time to look at gifting while alive is when you reach your 70s. I believe this for a few reasons. One, you're through the retirement transition phase where the focus really should be on you and getting the most enjoyment out of that first phase of your retirement, out of those go-go years. Two, once you're on Social Security, certainty in a plan rises. Number 3, for many families, your kids may still be in their 20s when you're in your 60s. Now, it certainly depends on the child, but there's some portion of children that are more likely to misuse gifts at a younger age versus when they are more established, when they have a family established, when they know exactly what they want out of their money and they have better money management habits. Outside of this, however, I urge you to tackle this gifting problem the same way you would the income problem. Whether you use income from your portfolio for yourself or for someone else, the math remains the same, the logic is the same. So here's how I think about this for our clients. In every plan, we have an essential income budget, we have a discretionary budget, and then we have spending capacity. Let's say hypothetically that you want to utilize spending from your portfolio, but only up to a certain point. In this case, we'll say $8,000 per month. But beyond that, you won't receive as much enjoyment from additional spending. If spending capacity is beyond this, then this would be your giving ability. We know we can safely withdraw this, but now you're directing this towards your child's benefit versus your own benefit. And so the same logic applies. For some families, you might be able to start gifting a lot sooner if your spending capacity initially is a lot higher. For others, you may need to wait until later years in your retirement. The point being, this die with zero philosophy can simply be adapted to your retirement with some creative approaches. As you can see, however, these approaches do take some reasonable planning. So I would highly recommend you work with a trusted professional. If you want to explore this philosophy more in depth, click on this video right here where I walk through some powerful concepts from this book that you can apply to your life that can change your life. Thanks so much for watching. Always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan. We'll see you in the next video.